Assalamu alaikum, let's explore this Islamic topic together. Hey, so, we were talking about Islam the other day, right? And it got me thinking about something really fascinating, the hidden lives of women in early Islam. It's a huge topic, and honestly, it's something that often gets overlooked. But understanding it is key to really grasping the full picture of early Islam. See, we often hear about the big names, the Prophet Muhammad, the caliphs, the famous battles, but the everyday lives of women during that period? That's where things get really interesting. And often surprisingly complex. It's not just about uncovering forgotten stories. It's about re-evaluating the narratives we already have. The thing is, early Islam brought about massive social changes. And women were undeniably part of that transformation. But how exactly did it play out in their daily lives? That's where the real story lies. Think about it, the Arabian Peninsula before Islam. It was a very patriarchal society, even compared to other parts of the world at that time. Women had very little legal standing. Their lives often dictated by tribal customs. And their value often linked to their lineage or the number of sons they bore. Marriage was often arranged, and women had limited rights regarding divorce or property ownership. It was a tough reality, you know. Then comes Islam, and things start to shift. The Quran introduced radical concepts for that time. Suddenly, women were recognized as individuals with their own rights and responsibilities before God. The Quran emphasized the importance of justice and equality between men and women, stating that both are accountable before God. It stressed mutual respect and partnership in marriage. The concept of khul a wife initiating a divorce under certain conditions was revolutionary, giving women a level of agency previously unheard of. Now, it wasn't a sudden, complete overhaul. Think of it like a ripple effect. The Quran provided the framework for change, but its implementation varied depending on the region, the prevailing social norms, and the interpretation of the religious s. It's crucial to remember that the early Islamic world wasn't monolithic. Different communities, different cultures, different interpretations. What we do know is that women played crucial roles in the early Muslim community. We have accounts of women participating in battles, providing medical care, running businesses, and even acting as advisors to important figures. Think of Khadija, the Prophet Muhammad's first wife, a successful businesswoman who supported him financially and emotionally in the early stages of his prophethood. Or consider the role of women in spreading the message of Islam, many of whom risked everything to share their faith. Their stories are incredible, and they challenge the common perception of women in that era being solely confined to domestic roles. But let's be honest, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. The transition wasn't easy. Old patriarchal traditions didn't disappear overnight. The interpretation and implementation of Islamic law varied widely, leading to different experiences for women across the vast Islamic empire. Some women enjoyed more freedom and autonomy than others, depending on factors like their social class, geographic location, and the specific community they lived in. There were also debates and differing opinions on how to interpret and apply specific verses of the Quran concerning women's rights. This led to different legal interpretations, resulting in a range of experiences for women even within the same community. That's a crucial point to remember. Early Islam, like any historical period, was full of contradictions and complexities. It wasn't a perfectly unified society. The study of hidden lives is about uncovering those complexities, challenging simplistic narratives, and understanding the diverse experiences of women in early Islam. It's about acknowledging the struggles, the triumphs, the compromises, and the varying degrees of agency they experienced. It's about hearing their stories, however fragmented they may be, and giving them the voice they deserve. It's a journey of rediscovery. Really, we're piecing together fragments from historical letters, and even archaeological evidence to paint a more complete picture of their lives. It's about looking beyond the grand narratives and delving into the everyday lives of women. Their marriages, their families, their work, their faith, their struggles, and their aspirations. It's a complex and nuanced picture, and it's one that's still being painted as scholars continue to uncover new information and reinterpret existing. So, why is studying the hidden lives of women in early Islam significant? Because it allows us to understand not just the history of Islam, but the history of women, the history of social change, and the persistent tension between religious ideals and lived realities. It challenges our preconceived notions and encourages us to examine the complexities of history with nuance and empathy. It's a vital part of understanding the richness and diversity of the Islamic world, past and present. It's a reminder that history isn't just about kings and battles. It's about the everyday lives of ordinary people, and their stories deserve to be heard. Hey, so you want to know about the hidden lives of women in early Islam? It's fascinating stuff, really. It's not just about veils and harems, although those things were part of it, of course. It's about understanding how a massive societal shift impacted women in ways we often overlook. Imagine this: the Arabian Peninsula before Islam. Think harsh desert landscapes, fiercely tribal societies, and, for women, a pretty tough existence. Women largely had their lives dictated by their tribes and families. Their value was often tied to their ability to bear sons, and their social standing wasn't very high. They could be married off young, divorced easily, and had limited rights to property or education. It was a patriarchal society. Plain and simple. Then comes Islam, with this completely revolutionary message of equality before God. That's the starting point, the crucial turning point for women. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, explicitly mentions women, not as a footnote, but as active participants in society in their own lives. It challenges the existing patriarchal norms head-on, which was pretty radical for that time. But here's the thing, the reality wasn't just a sudden, seamless transformation. The impact of these revolutionary ideas played out differently depending on the individual, their social class, and their geographic location. That's why talking about the hidden lives is so important. We're talking about the nuanced stories, not a simple before and after narrative. The Quran speaks about women's rights to inheritance, which was unheard of in many parts of Arabia. It emphasized the importance of treating women with respect and kindness, a direct challenge to the brutal practices of the time. Think of the stories of female companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Women like Khadija, his first wife, a successful businesswoman who supported him wholeheartedly, or Aisha, one of his wives, known for her intelligence and wisdom. These women were incredibly influential, breaking boundaries and participating in the political and religious discourse of the time. However, the transition wasn't without its complexities. The interpretation and application of these new ideals varied widely across different communities. Some embraced these changes wholeheartedly, others resisted, resulting in a tapes of lived experiences for women. Think about the role of women in the early Muslim community. Some women became renowned scholars, memorizing the Quran and engaging in religious debates. Others were involved in business and trade, playing crucial economic roles. There were women who became influential advisors to rulers, shaping political decisions. The stories of these women are often buried under the weight of history. But they're slowly being unearthed. It's important to remember that the early Muslim world wasn't a monolith. Different regions had varying cultural practices and interpretations of Islamic teachings. These interpretations often influenced how women's lives unfolded. In some places, women enjoyed greater freedom and autonomy than in others. It's crucial to avoid generalizations and instead delve into the regional variations. The issue of veiling is a prime example. While the Quran mentions modesty, the specific forms it took varied considerably over time and across geographical regions. It wasn't a uniform practice imposed by a central authority. It became associated with different social and cultural meanings in different communities. Sometimes a symbol of piety and status. Other times a reflection of social norms and power dynamics. Another really important factor to consider is the impact of social class. Wealthier women, naturally, had more agency and opportunities than their poorer counterparts. The lives of women in urban centers were likely very different from the lives of rural women. For example, their access to education, employment, and social mobility was heavily influenced by their economic standing. So, what began? It began with the Quran's radical message of equality, challenging deeply ingrained patriarchal structures. But what followed was a complex and often contradictory, not a clean break with the past. It was a journey marked by both progress and resistance, with women actively shaping their own lives within the confines and possibilities of their time. The hidden lives of women in early Islam are precisely those nuanced, varied experiences, the individual stories that challenge the simplistic narratives and reveal the richness and complexity of women's roles in the formative years of Islam. It's a fascinating and ongoing story, and it's still being uncovered. Hey, so we've touched on the beginnings of Islam and the immediate aftermath. Right? Now, things get really interesting when we delve into the middle chapters of women's lives in early Islam. It's not all sunshine and roses, but it's incredibly important to understand the complexities. Remember how we talked about the initial period, where women found a newfound sense of dignity and agency compared to pre-Islamic Arabia? Well, this middle period, roughly the first couple of centuries after the Prophet Muhammad's death, shows a much more nuanced picture. It's a time of consolidation, expansion of the empire, and consequently, a shift in social dynamics. Think of it like a teenager growing up. The initial excitement fades a little, and you have to grapple with more complicated issues. One thing that really stands out is the diversity of women's experiences. We're not talking about a monolithic group here. You had women who were scholars, poets, jurists, incredibly influential figures shaping religious thought and legal interpretations. Think of Salama, a wife of the Prophet known for her wisdom and legal knowledge. Her opinions carried significant weight, shaping the understanding of Islamic law. Then you had women like Rabia al-Adawiyya, a Sufi mystic whose poem teachings continue to inspire people today. Her spiritual journey completely redefined what piety and devotion could look like for a woman. These weren't just passive figures. They were active participants in shaping the intellectual and spiritual landscape. But alongside these powerful women, we also see the realities of a rapidly changing society. The expansion of the Islamic empire brought immense wealth and power. But it also exacerbated existing inequalities. We see accounts of women who were marginalized due to poverty, social status, or simply being in less privileged circumstances. Their voices are often harder to find, buried in the historical records dominated by those in positions of power. However, piecing together their stories is crucial to understanding the full picture. A significant aspect to consider during this time is the evolution of Islamic jurisprudence. While initially, Islamic law granted women considerable rights to property, divorce, education, the interpretations and applications of these laws varied considerably across different regions and communities. Personal opinions and cultural norms often played a huge role in shaping women's daily lives. Sometimes to their detriment, we see different schools of thought emerge, each with its own interpretations on women's roles in society, marriage, inheritance, and so on. This created a lot of diversity, but also led to inconsistencies in the treatment of women across the Muslim world. Think about something like inheritance. While Islam gave women the right to inherit, the actual amount they received often depended on local customs and interpretations of the law. This often meant that women, particularly daughters, received less than their male counterparts, leading to significant economic disparities. Another area of fascinating, yet complicated, development is the evolving understanding of wailing. We often get a simplified, modern narrative. The reality was far more complex. The practices of wailing were already present in pre-Islamic Arabia, but the emergence of Islam brought new interpretations and debates around modesty and social behavior. The way women covered themselves, or didn't, was highly variable across different regions and social classes, and interpretations of modesty varied considerably. It wasn't a simple on or off switch. It was much more nuanced than that. It's also important to acknowledge the presence of patriarchal structures that inevitably impacted women's experiences. While Islam offered a framework for greater equality, social realities often undermined those ideals. The concentration of power in the hands of men, combined with existing cultural norms, meant that many women faced limitations on their freedom and autonomy. So, the middle chapters aren't simply a continuation of the initial positive trajectory. They represent a period of both progress and challenge. We witness remarkable women who defied expectations and made significant contributions to society, alongside the harsh realities faced by many others. Understanding this complexity is vital to appreciate the full scope of women's experiences within early Islam, and to avoid oversimplifying the rich and intricate historical tapes. It's not a simple story of either progress or regression. It's a story of both, simultaneously unfolding and interacting in complex ways. And that's what makes it so compelling. Hey, so, we've been diving into the fascinating, and often surprising, hidden lives of women in early Islam, right? We've talked about everything from powerful female figures like Khadija, Muhammad's first wife, a successful businesswoman who supported him financially and emotionally, to the everyday lives of women in Medina and beyond. It's amazing how much we've uncovered about a period often simplified in popular narratives. As we near the end of our exploration, it's important to remember that concluding this story isn't like putting a neat bow on a present. It's more like reaching the end of a meandering river. You've seen its many currents and tributaries, its calmer stretches and its rapids. But the water keeps flowing, shaping the landscape far beyond where you've stopped looking. The lives of women in early Islam didn't just end at a certain point. Their influence rippled outwards through generations, One thing that consistently struck me was the diversity of their experiences. We talked about the educated women who memorized the Quran, participated in intellectual discussions, and even the Hadith, the sayings and traditions of the Prophet Muhammad. These women weren't just passive recipients of religious knowledge. They were active participants in shaping and transmitting it. They were scholars in their own right, influencing the intellectual landscape of the time. Think of Aisha, the Prophet's youngest wife. Renowned for her intelligence and knowledge of religious law, she became a significant of Hadith herself. Then there were the women who played crucial roles in the social and economic fabric of their communities. Many were involved in trade, managing businesses, and supporting their families. The idea of women being solely confined to the domestic sphere is a gross oversimplification. While the societal norms certainly influenced their lives, we've seen plenty of evidence suggesting that women found ways to carve out their own spaces and influence within those norms. However, it's equally important to acknowledge the challenges they faced. The patriarchal structures of the time, even within the early Islamic society, did restrict women's freedoms in various ways. Inheritance laws, for instance, weren't always equitable, and women's testimonies in court often carried less weight than men's. This doesn't negate their accomplishments or agency. Rather, it connoisses their achievements within a complex social reality. It shows how women navigated, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, the constraints placed upon them. The narrative also reveals the crucial role of family structures and kinship networks in the lives of women. Marriage was, of course, a significant event, often dictated by family alliances and social standing. However, the relationships between mothers and daughters, sisters, and female cousins often played a crucial role in providing support, guidance, and emotional stability in a rapidly changing world. These women formed strong bonds of solidarity, offering mutual support within their communities. One of the most powerful aspects of studying these hidden lives is seeing how women adapted to new environments. The migration from Makkah to Medina, a significant event in Islamic history, impacted women's lives profoundly. They faced new challenges adapting to a new culture and societal structures. Yet, they also found opportunities to participate in the building of a new society, contributing their skills and experience to the burgeoning community. So, how does it conclude? It doesn't, really. The hidden lives of women in early Islam don't conclude in a neat package. Instead, it's an ongoing story, a continuing conversation. It's a testament to the resilience, adaptability, and agency of women in a period of profound historical transformation. It challenges us to question the simplistic narratives we often encounter, urging us to delve deeper and uncover the complexities of the past. By being on these hidden lives, we gain a richer and more nuanced understanding of early Islam itself. It's not just about the battles and political maneuvering. It's about the everyday experiences, the challenges overcome, and the enduring legacies of women who shaped the course of history. Often without fanfare or recognition, their stories become a powerful lens through which to view the broader historical narrative. It's a reminder that history is never truly complete until it incorporates all voices, including those that have been marginalized or overlooked. By rediscovering and celebrating the hidden lives of women in early Islam, we enrich our understanding not only of that specific period but also of the enduring struggles and triumphs of women throughout history. It's an inspiring story of perseverance, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit. even in the face of formidable challenges. And that's something worth remembering long after we finish our conversation. So, you're curious about what hidden lives of women in early Islam teaches Muslims today? It's a fascinating topic, and honestly, it makes you rethink a lot of what you might have assumed. It's not just dusty history. It's a powerful story about resilience, agency, and the complexities of faith. First off, it's crucial to understand the con. We're talking about a period of immense upheaval, the very birth of Islam. Think about it, a new religion emerging in a world dominated by powerful empire, with deeply entrenched social structures and customs. Women, especially, were often confined to very specific roles, defined largely by their family and tribal affiliations. And yet, within this con, Islam offered something radically different. At least in theory. The Quran, the holy book of Islam, introduced a completely new framework. It emphasized the equal spiritual worth of men and women. That's a pretty big deal. The idea that a woman's piety and devotion were just as valuable as a man's, that's revolutionary. Especially for that time. The verses about women's rights to inheritance, to divorce, to education, these were revolutionary concepts. It was a significant shift from many pre-Islamic Arabian traditions. Now, the reality wasn't always a straightforward implementation of those ideals. Think of it like this. The Quran provided the blueprint, but the construction was happening in a world that wasn't always ready for it. We see women actively participating in the early Muslim community, some becoming prominent scholars, others leading businesses, and still others involved in crucial political discussions. Aisha, the Prophet Muhammad's wife, is a prime example, incredibly intelligent, deeply influential, and known for her legal expertise. She played a significant role in transmitting the Prophet's teachings. And then there were women like Salama, known for her wisdom and diplomatic skills, who helped resolve conflicts. But the story wasn't just about the famous names. The hidden lives part refers to the ordinary women, the mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters who shaped the community in countless unseen ways. Their stories aren't often found in grand historical essays, but their impact was immense. They were the backbone of families, running households, raising children, and keeping the community running. They were also the ones who preserved and transmitted oral traditions, which became a vital part of Islamic history. What does this teach us today? It teaches us a powerful lesson about the ongoing interpretation of religious essays. The Quran's message of equality was there from the beginning, but its practical application has evolved and continues to evolve across centuries and cultures. Studying the lives of women in early Islam shows us how carnal factors shaped the lived experience of faith. It shows that even within a framework that theoretically values equality, social realities can create inequalities. It reminds us not to romanticize the past. We shouldn't project modern sensibilities onto a historical period vastly different from our own. We need to understand the challenges faced by early Muslim women while also appreciating their resilience and their contributions. This nuanced perspective helps us avoid a simplistic, idealized view. Importantly, exploring these hidden lives challenges us to critically examine how Islamic teachings have been interpreted and applied throughout history. It encourages us to ask, how have societal norms and cultural practices sometimes overshadowed or contradicted the spirit of the Quran's message on women's rights? And how can we strive to create a more just and equitable society that fully realizes the ideals of equality enshrined in Islamic teachings? Furthermore, It highlights the importance of diverse voices in shaping our understanding of Islamic history. For too long, the narrative has been dominated by a male perspective. Discovering and amplifying the voices of women in early Islam helps create a more complete and accurate picture of the past. It allows us to learn from their experiences, their struggles, and their triumphs. The study of these hidden lives encourages us to actively seek out those voices that have been marginalized or silenced. It's not just about reading academic essays. It's about engaging in critical conversations, re-examining traditional interpretations, and empowering women within our own communities. Finally, understanding the challenges faced by women in early Islam offers invaluable insight for contemporary Muslim women navigating their faith in modern societies. It provides a historical context for understanding the ongoing struggle for gender equality within a Muslim world. It's a powerful reminder that the journey towards a just and equitable society is an ongoing one that requires constant reflection, critical analysis, and a commitment to upholding the principles of justice and equality at the heart of our faith. The hidden lives are a powerful testament to the enduring spirit of women within Islam. And their stories continue to inspire and challenge us today. Goodbye. May Allah bless us all. That's our discussion for today.